It seems that everywhere I look, Pokemon Go players are feeling a bit annoyed. They're feeling a bit peeved right now. And the reason for that is because of two things that happened over the weekend, which I really wanted to talk about in this video. Alright, how's it going everyone? Jinsula here with a brand new Pokemon Go video. I hope your day is going really well, and let's get right into it. Alright, so I just got back from Las Vegas, Nevada for my birthday. It was an incredible time and I did have a lot of really good moments. And today I wanted to talk about how I'm currently feeling about Pokemon Go, as well as a lot of other players, because I've been looking online, I've been going through Reddit and social media, and I've been seeing a lot of players' reactions to some of Niantic's decisions as of late, and it does seem like there's two areas that is causing a lot of strife, and there's a lot of complaining. And those two areas are related to Shadow Raids, unfortunately, as well as with the release of Articuno Dynamax battles. I think these two areas had a lot of potential. I think the Shadow Raids over the weekend were incredibly good, but I think with some of the things that Niantic decided to do, it's causing a lot of players to feel very unhappy, and I do think it's important that we talk about it. So let's first talk about the Shadow Raids. So why are people complaining about Shadow Raids? Well, it's not necessarily the Ho-Oh Shadow Raid Day itself. I think that was actually something that a lot of players saw as incredibly positive. In fact, you see a lot of people saying, "Thank you, Niantic," which is incredibly rare. But it's really the fact that Niantic decided to, after Shadow Ho-Oh raids were done, to turn off remote raiding for Shadow Raids. I think this was something that a lot of players saw as a huge quality of life improvement, but Niantic decided to do what they've always been doing, where anytime they introduce something that's a really good quality of life improvement, they take it away and they say that, well, it was always temporary. It wasn't necessarily meant to be a permanent addition to the game. So I think a lot of players are very unhappy about that, because I feel like, and I agree with them, because when it comes to Shadow Raids, one of the things that it desperately needs is for you to be able to do them remotely. I think that was something that Niantic should keep as a permanent change. And unfortunately, it looks like they're not going to do that. So yeah, I think that's definitely one reason why a lot of players are unhappy, and rightfully so. If Niantic wasn't so stingy with their game design, if they weren't so gung-ho about trying to get people to go out and play outdoors, then I think this game would be in a much better place. Yes, they should definitely keep a lot of elements that encourages players to play outside, but I also feel like for them to do all these sort of restrictions to force players to go outside, I think that just downgrades the game, especially when it comes to this sort of content. So yeah, I really hope this is something Niantic reconsiders. I think the evidence is clear that players really enjoy being able to remote into Shadow Raids, and it definitely improves the system as well. When it comes to Shadow Raids, I think there was just so much engagement ever since they allowed you to do it remotely. And it's something that I feel like would only benefit Pokemon Go in the long term. So yeah, this is something that I do hope Niantic considers as a permanent change rather than something that was temporary. Alright, so what's the next thing that players are unhappy about? Well, it's related to something that I thought would be really exciting, and personally I was hyping it up. But it's Articuno Dynamax battles. This was something that was released yesterday while I was on a plane going back to Chicago, so unfortunately I completely missed out on the Max Battle Day, but the release of legendaries into Dynamax battles definitely changed things up. It's something that does open up the gameplay to some different levels that I think a lot of players might actually find to be beneficial, but I do think that the way that they executed the release of Dynamax Articuno was something that I think a lot of players were frustrated with. One of the things that I commonly saw was the need for private lobbies when it comes to these sort of battles, because I think a lot of players were trying to coordinate with people, especially their friends, and they were not able to join in the same lobby because they would get random players jumping into the battle. And I can see why this would be very frustrating, because Dynamax Articuno was pretty difficult as an encounter, and it seems like for a lot of players, they want to be able to complete it with just their friends. I mean, it is something you could zerg down with a whole bunch of people, but if you can strategize with just 3 other players, you can take it down with the least number of trainers as possible, and this is something that a lot of players were trying to do. But because there was no private lobbies and there's no system that allows you to just specifically play with only your friends, it was something that caused a lot of frustration over the weekend. At least this is what I've been seeing. And I think another reason why players are frustrated with Dynamax Articuno battles is for the same reasons they're really frustrated with the system as a whole. First and foremost, there's no way to remote into these battles, and there's no way for you to, I don't know, be able to take it down with the least amount of effort. I totally understand that these sort of battles are meant to be incredibly difficult. I mean, it's not something that I suggest Niantic ever do, just willy-nilly giving out legendaries to players, but I also feel like they could ease off on a lot of the restrictions. They could make it so that you could potentially solo these, and yeah, you can potentially solo these if you have the right Pokemon and the right strategies, but personally, I feel like it should be something where it's basically solo content. It's endgame solo content. I think that's a much better approach rather than just forcing players to constantly play with their friends. I think there's a lot of different aspects of Pokemon Go where you can play with your friends and get the most out of it, but requiring that for a lot of the different content, I think that's where players are drawing the line. I mean, people have a lot of fun when it comes to special events like Pokemon Go Fest, with community days, and with Shadow Ho-Oh Raid Day. Those are definitely great moments for you to play with your friends. But when it comes to these sort of difficult Dynamax battles, I think it's something that a lot of players would prefer doing alone. Players are pointing out that this was a great opportunity for them to allow solo players and people who live in low population areas to get certain legendaries basically by themselves. I think this would have been a really cool method for providing some great solo content. And again, there have been a lot of reports of players being able to solo this encounter with the right setup and the right conditions. And yeah, I think that alone does kind of prove the point that Dynamax battles can be great solo content. But I really do think for a lot of people, this was something that did leave a lot to be desired. I think a lot of people were hoping that this would be solo content, and you know, I totally understand that sentiment, because when it comes to Dynamax battles, it's really something that not a lot of players really care about right now, and it's simply because they need so many people to take down some of the most difficult encounters. I will say that when it comes to Gigantamax battles, maybe that is where they could try to get more players to play with their friends. But when it comes to just regular max battles, maybe that's something where they could tune it to be completely soloable. So yeah, these are some of the areas where players are feeling very frustrated with Pokemon Go right now, but it's kind of one of those things where it's not necessarily game breaking. I don't think these are complaints at the level of when they originally nerfed remote raids, for example. Like, this is all stuff that it's kind of nitpicky, in my opinion. I don't think it's something that necessarily affects you in such a huge negative way. Like, if you completely ignore Dynamax Articuno battles, it's not going to hurt your account. It's not going to be something that's going to be detrimental to you. Like, Dynamax Articuno, yeah, that could help you out with Dynamax content, but it's not going to be necessary for raids or PvP. It could definitely provide you with something that could be good for those areas, but Articuno is not necessarily a meta Pokemon, so yeah, this is all stuff that is optional content. And then regarding the issue with Shadow Raids not being remotable anymore, I think that's something that should be expected. Anytime Niantic does something with a quality of life improvement, it's likely going to be temporary so that they could monetize it in the future, unfortunately, or maybe they could add it into the future after getting a lot of positive feedback. So yeah, I think this is all not necessarily big important issues, and you know, I just kind of wanted to talk about a lot of the things that players are frustrated with. But at the end of the day, I just really hope Niantic makes the right decisions regarding these areas. If they can make it so that at the very least you could do private lobbies for Dynamax Articuno, I think that's a huge change for Dynamax battles as a whole. And in the future, maybe they could bring back the ability to remote raid into Shadow Raids. I think that's something that a lot of players will enjoy. So yeah. But yeah, that's essentially going to be it for this video. I just wanted to share some of my thoughts regarding some of the things that I've been seeing regarding feedback with all this recent content. And hopefully we can see some positive changes for Pokemon Go. It's really going to be up to us to have a very good discourse regarding this stuff. And yeah, if you have any thoughts regarding anything that I talked about in this video, definitely share it in the comments below so that we could have those good discussions. And that's going to be it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. I'm Jinsula. Be safe, have fun, love yourself, and I'll catch you in the next one.